Hello, this is Chris Vody, also known as Mad Cat and also known as the Angry Egalitarian, although I'm not really going to be the Angry Egalitarian today, but many of you know me as such. Um, Today, I'm going to be talking about Sad Puppies 3. I just found out about this like an hour ago. And since then, I've been like completely immersed in all of the facts that I could gather on this. And we're going to kind of discuss that a little bit today. Now, I kind of didn't want to do this video because I am in the middle of my campaign for writing, for producing my next book because of my disability. But I kind of felt like I was obligated to, because a few months ago, I came out publicly that I supported Gamergate. And this was one of the hardest decisions I made. And I kind of got from some people that they didn't really seem to understand why I was so fearful of doing that. Why was it such a big deal that I came out publicly like I did? I mean, what does it really matter that some writer supports Gamergate? And Sad Puppies 3 and the controversy with the Hugo Award is the reason I was scared about the backlash that they got. And I actually saw it when I first became a writer. And I'll discuss that in greater detail as we look through the various things. But I kind of want to go through and talk about a couple of elements to this and give you my views on it. But I will say that coming out to Gamergate, I'm glad to have done it, but I have received a little bit of backlash, and I feel that even making this video, I'm still going to receive backlash from the writing community. Now, I originally came upon this article because of a blog I follow. I won't mention whose blog it is. The person in question was against Sad Puppies 3, is against Gamergate. Makes you wonder why I'm following this person. Well, mostly because he writes good articles on writing. And I don't agree with his politics. In fact, we contrast a lot. But again, he writes good articles. He writes very good articles on writing. So I follow him because, I like those articles. Now, the issue here, the question is whether or not the content of a story should be weighed on a person's personal politics or anything like that. And that's what Sad Puppies 3 really seems to be about, is saying, when it comes to things like a Hugo Award, take that out of contention. Whatever a person is, whatever they say on a personal level, whatever they do with their personal lives, don't bring it to the writing itself. That it's possible that someone really, really bad of a person can write something really good. I think that I demonstrate that by the fact that, I follow someone who has their politics is contrast to mine, and I still follow them because I like the other things that they write. Because it's still good advice. Good advice is good advice. A good story is still a good story. I mean, I'll probably never go out of my way and, invite this person a coffee and become friends with them or join their little clique, which they do have one. But on that token, I'll never do that. But I will still respect their work, and I will still recommend that people read the various articles that they write. So let me go ahead and get this episode started. So let's go ahead and do our screen share. Burp, 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 burp. All right, so shilling. Sorry, let me get this out of the way first. Got 25 days left. I have $350 my $3,000 goal. I really do need your help. I am disabled. I can't work. I can't do a regular job. You know, I can do videos because I'm in my own room. You know, I can write because I can control my environment. I can take breaks as often as I need to. You know, I can do a couple hours of writing and then do nothing for the rest of the day while I rest my mind. And that's why it's ideal. And that's why I want to do it. And even doing this video and this controversy might set me apart from other writers. You know, we need more writers like that who want good story and not politics. And I'm one of those writers. And yeah, I'm kind of using this event to talk about myself, but I'm kind of desperate here. I really need this. Now, you know, my main story is going to be about Templar Knights, a former remnant of the Templar Knights fighting against vampires spreading around the bubonic plague. Why would vampires kill off their own food source? How does that make any sense? The story goes into it. It'll be a long series, but easy to get through because the books themselves are going to be relatively short. So you can get through it within a day or so. Read the supplements to get more story, and then won't wait a very long time for the next book to come out. So just real quick, going to go over some of the prizes. I know you want to get to the main story, and you can go ahead and skip past this if you choose to. But, you know, $1, you'll be my friend, and I'll list you on my blog. $3 will get you a copy of my Templar 5 book when it is released. $5 will get you a copy of all 3 of my books I currently have on the, well, 2 of the books that are currently on the market, which is Scraping By and Terror and Psychosis. Terror and Psychosis has gotten a lot of good reviews on it. It's a really good book, in my opinion. It could help. You know, if I had like some professional editing, I think I could take it to the next level. But for what it is, it's gotten really good reviews. And that's a $7 value, and you get it for $5. $10, you get a special unique copy of Scraping By. $15 of Terror and Psychosis. $20 for Templar 5 itself. Okay. $25, you get a character named after you. And, you know, you give me your name, and then I'll look up behindthename.com and see what is a period-specific name for your character. And that will be your character. Now, it's not going to necessarily be based on you. It's going to be what's needed within the plot itself. But, you know, somewhere within the entire legacy, and I'm going to have a lot of opportunity for names, you know, going from France to Poland to the Netherlands to Italy to the Britain, Spain, and even to China. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for names for me to come up with characters. So, $50, you get a special Templar 5 that includes maps, character bios, a look into vampires in the Dagar universe, which there are a lot. I mean, at one point in time, there were once over 100 houses of vampires. Not so much anymore by the 14th century, but there, $75, you get the first 4 ebooks of the Dagar Legacy of Series 1 when it is released, a value of $100. And then for $100, Mercedes Carrera has volunteered that she will send you a autographed picture of herself. So that's enough shilling. Like I said, $3,000. This will help me out so much and give me a chance to make a living at something so I can take care of myself. Since the doctors won't take care of me, won't help me in any way, I can't get on disability without the doctor's help, which they refuse to help. So I'm going to stop talking about this now. Let's go on to the main topic. So we're going to look at this article in a little bit more detail. It looks like it's from Breitbart.com. And then we're going to look at a few other articles after that to kind of spell this out a little bit more. So Hugo Award nominations swept by anti-social justice warriors, anti-authoritarian authors. So that looks like one really sad puppy. I guess I'd be sad too if I looked like Brain from Pinky and the Brain. Pinky and the Brain, the Pinky and the Brain. Anywho, it is so cute though. So yeah, we're going to look at this article in a little bit more detail. What a time to be alive! Liberals write for Breitbart. A cartoon girl in a green and purple is a symbol of terror for the authoritarian left, and now an online campaign with Manatee for a spokesperson is exposing political cliques in the world of science fiction and fantasy publishing. Let me tell you, they exist. Even before I found out about Sad Puppies, I knew of these cliques existing. And when I first wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a part of these cliques, because being a part of these cliques was almost like a brotherhood, was almost like a fraternity or a sorority, given that they're anti-feminine, given that they're feminist in nature. But I wanted to be a part of it because if I was a part of it, it means I'd sell books. I've since, and that was like 3 years ago when I was like really wanting to be a part of this stuff. Not so much anymore. In February, we reported on the Sad Puppies campaign, a tongue-in-cheek bid by science fiction and fantasy authors to draw attention to an atmosphere of political intolerance, driven by so-called social justice warriors that is holding the medium back. Spearheaded by authors Larry Correia, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, and Brad R. Torgerson. The campaign sought to break the stranglehold of old cliques by encouraging a more politically diverse group of fans to take part in the annual Hugo Awards. That seems like a really good thing to me. You know, let's stop with this politics. Let's stop with all of this politics, and let's just get a politically diverse group of people to decide what is the best work. A week of rumors about the campaign's success were confirmed this Saturday when the announcement of the final Hugo Awards ballot. Authors and works endorsed by the Sad Puppies nomination slate swept the field, a reflection of just how many new fans the rebel authors have brought into the Hugo process. Recommendations from Vox Day's allied Rabid Puppy slate also dominated. Indeed, in the categories of Best Novella, Best Short Story, and Best Novelette, the two slates swept the entire field, an astonishing achievement for a genre some considered to be wholly owned by the social justice tendency just a few short years ago. It's worth noting that the Sad Puppies were not the first group to propose a slate of suggested nominations. The trend was started by former president, Science Fiction Writers Guild of America, John Scalzi, who hosted an annual award pimpage post on his blog. British writer Charles Stross followed his example, but there was little semblance of a backlash to either Stross or Scalzi, who were both deeply embedded in the existing clique. So what this is saying here is that John Scalzi, who I've actually met before, I don't ever think you'd ever remember who I was. I was just some random person at Comic-Con, but I have met him before. I didn't really have any strong opinions of him, but so basically a few years back, John Scalzi is like, well, you know what? Let's get our clique on the inside and we can decide who should get it awards. And yet, following today's news, the same people who fawned over Scalzi's erupted in outrage. Apparently because of the Sad and Rabid Puppy organizers and authors are identified as libertarians and even, shock horror, conservatives. I'm not really I guess to an extent I could be considered a libertarian. I really don't know, nor do I really care. I'm definitely not a conservative, and I tend not to find too much common ground with conservatives, but I don't hate them. Earlier today, I tried to inform a Guardian contributor about Scalzi's record of nomination slates. I noticed he was preparing a story on the Hugo Awards, and as a fellow journalist, I thought I'd provide him with some relevant information. His response was to block me. Yeah, but that's what happens with social justice warriors. You give them something that states that their narrative is not as they claim it to be, and they'll block you because it's easier to block a dissident than to address what they're actually saying. It really is hard to part a man from his double standards. But the fact is, the Sad Puppies are playing by the rules established by Scalzi and his clique, and they're winning. They're just mad. Scalzi and gang, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Scalzi and gang are basically angry that their tactic is being used against them. And it's successful. That's all this really comes down to for Scalzi and gang. All right, Corfs. I had no idea what this was until I read this. The chief complaint from the Sad Puppy campaigners is the atmosphere of political intolerance and cliquishness that prevails in the sci-fi community. Not just the sci-fi community, but the writing community as a whole. I know this is about the Hugo Award, which is for the science fiction and fantasy community, but I will tell you, as a person who's I haven't really been on the inside, but I've been on the outside looking in directly at the writing community. It is very feminist dominated. I will tell you that. Which is why when I came out that I'm not exactly anti-feminist, I'm not feminist, I'm not entirely MRA, although I have more ties to the MRA in anti-feminist than feminism. I'm an egalitarian. I support all of those who want true equality, but not all feminists will see me as, a possible ally. They will see me as an enemy. So when I came out to Gamergate and said, look, I support Gamergate. I support Not Your Shield. I'm disabled. I'm a gamer, and I write, and I want to be a writer, a full-time writer. I was scared that feminists, and I'm still scared of this, that feminists would find my books and give me 100 one-star ratings, which would destroy my placement within Amazon. Right now, I'm pretty good. I'm at like 1.8 millionth place, which doesn't really sound like a big deal, but you got to consider that there's probably over 10 million books on Amazon at any given point in time, and I got 1.8 rating. I've got a 4.5 star rating after 10 ratings. So my book is doing fairly good. And my future books, I've had a lot of people tell me is pretty good. And I guess, when I release my first book later this week, I'll get a little bit more feedback from people, which I welcome, because, the feedback I get, I can put into my book and make better. Or just completely ignore you altogether. Either or is a possibility, but I do take reviews seriously, even if I don't follow them. But, a feminist could find my work and 100 or 1,000 of them could all give me one-star ratings and completely destroys my work. That is a fear I have, and I still came out. So according to the libertarian sci-fi author Sarah Hoyt, whispering campaigns by insiders have been responsible for the de facto blacklisting of political nonconformist writers across the sci-fi community. Authors who earn the ire of the dominant clique can expect to have a harder time getting published and being quietly passed over at award ceremonies. Ding, ding, ding. This was, I'm not really at the quality yet of receiving awards, but certainly now that, I'm an activist for Gamergate, that's something I have to face. This is why I support Sad Puppies. So, where was I? So, as with Gamergate, the political biases of a small elite has led to the exclusion of those who think differently, even if they are in the majority. Brad R. Torgerson, who manages this year's Sad Puppies campaign, spoke to Breitbart London about its success. I am glad to be overturning the apple cart. Numerous author, editors, and markets have been routinely snubbed and ignored over the years because they were not popular within the WSFS, which I believe that's Western science fiction something, or because their politics have made them radioactive. And I'm probably radioactive myself. Not that I'm really a big deal or anything, but, I kind of tried to distance myself from other writers because I didn't want them to be affected by me. Torgerson cites a host of authors who have been suffered de facto exclusion from sci-fi community: David Drake, David Weber, L.E. Modesitt Jr. He's a very good man. Me and him have actually discussed economics before in world building. He knows his shit. I have a lot of respect for him. Kevin J. Anderson, Eric Flint, and of course Orson Scott Card, the creator of the world famous Ender's Game, which was recently adopted into a successful movie. Despite his phenomenal success, Scott Card has been ostracized by sci-fi's inner circle thanks to his opposition to gay marriage. You know what? I don't agree with Scott Card. I don't like his politics, and I don't really like him as a person. But I've read Ender's Game. I enjoy it. I saw the movie. I enjoy it. I've read a few other things by Scott Card, and I enjoyed it. Now, of course, this was before his politics really came to fruition. But I even tried reading L. Ron Hubbard's book on Battlefield Earth. And I knew who L. Ron Hubbard was. I didn't really like L. Ron Hubbard either. I tried to read the book. Oh my God, it was boring. Snooze fest. But, I tried. But I didn't let something like how I felt about the author to color my judgment of their work. And I still even recommend people read Ender's Game, that it's actually a good book, despite the author, saying that he's against gay marriage. Don't like the author, but like the book. Torgerson and Carrera have a name for their inner circle. They call the name for that inner circle. They call them Corfs, cliquish, holier than thou, obnoxious, reactionary fanatics. Yeah, that's about as good name as you're going to get. It's roughly equivalent to social justice warriors, the internet pejorative used to describe politically intolerant activists who are social shaming and abuse to dominant communities, while enthusiastically painting themselves as a victim of both. The Humblings of Tor. The epicenter of the clique's influence is Tor Books and its domineering editors, Patrick and Teresa Nielsen Hayden. It also encompasses the ultra-progressive John Scalzi and his fans, who begin the trend of nominating slates and block voting. The Chorf's position as the only organized clique in sci-fi allowed them to dominate awards for years. That's why the Sad Puppies are such a shock to the system. Yeah, I bet. They cornered the market on the award system so that their books would always win. So it's like, it's almost like a mob family in a lot of ways. It's like, well, if you want to be successful, you've got to, you got to be through us. You got to give us a cut of the action. And we're going to, and I don't know if Tor could really be described as a mafia, but what I'm seeing with the Corfs, or the Chorfs, because Corf is cutting off reflective failure, but Chorfs, it seems like, well, we control the market. And, if you want to be even part of the market, you have to live by our standard. And that is wrong. It shouldn't be like that. And yet it is. That's why the Sad Puppies are pretty much exist, from what I can tell, because of this cronyism. And this is the thing that Gamergate was fighting against with gang journalism. They cornered the market, so they were the ones who decided. They were the ones who decided who gets who gets good reviews and who gets bad reviews. And if you piss off news media, they're going to give you a bad review just because they can. And that was the whole thing with what was it, Brianna Wu? She's becoming so obsolete from this, I can barely remember her name. But she knew how to play the system. She slept her way to reviews. And I know there are people out there, oh no, she never actually did, and blah, 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 blah. Yes, she fucking did. She manipulated the system to her own financial gain. And that's the problem. That's what Gamergate is fighting against, is bullshit like this. And now Sad Puppies is doing the exact same thing. Now, Sad Puppies has been around since before Gamergate, but with the popularity and rise of Gamergate, Sad Puppies is now able to have an effective change on the sci-fi community. Okay, enough ranting. Let me get back now. So, Tor Books claimed the Locus Awards for the Best Publisher for 26 years in a row and has won 38 of 156 Hugo nominations in the last 30 years. In 2014, when Tor.com was founded, it claimed 50% of short story nomination at the Hugos, 40% of the novel nominations, and 20% of the novelette nominations. Its influence allowed widely ridiculed sub-Tumblr standard works of fiction such as If You Were a Dinosaur, My Love, and Chicks Dig Time Lords to make the ballot. It makes me wonder if this is why 50 Shades of Grey was also so popular. I mean, I know a lot of the other things about 50 Shades of Grey, but it makes me wonder if this Chorfs had anything to do with 50 Shades of Grey. Despite most authors talking out against 50 Shades of Grey, I mean, it established its own clique, and now it got made into a successful movie. So, makes me wonder. The Sad Puppies campaign, originally called the Sad Puppies Think of the Children, a dig at the activists who use faux empathy to win social acceptance, was conceived by best-selling author Larry Correia. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. In 2013. He hoped to force the Chorf clique into the sunlight by threatening their status. Instead of welcoming the arrival of the new politically diverse fans to the community, he predicted that the Chorfs would engage in an angry backlash to protect their influence. He was not disappointed. As news of the Sad Puppies' success trickled into the Chorfs' network and insiders this week, they began a very public meltdown and 1,000+ page discussion on Teresa Nielsen's Haydn's site. 1,000 page? Wow. The clique left readers with no illusion about the fact that the new fans were not welcomed. With no basis whatsoever, both Patrick and Teresa Nielsen Hayden, remember they're responsible for Tor, suggested that the influx of new nominations were not true sci-fi fans and threaten to unleash the fanish wrath against new arrivals. This sound familiar? This is what feminists do when they try to distance themselves, like, well, feminism is all about equality between men and women. Well, what about Mary Koss, who said that men can't be raped and that 1 in 5 women will be raped in their lifetimes? Oh, well, not all feminists are like that. This is the same fucking crap they're doing right here. These are not true science fiction fans. We should kick them out so we can maintain our influence. I guess the angry egalitarian is coming out today. So let's hear her quotes. Those of us who love science fiction and love fandom know in our hearts that the Hugo is ours. Notice the Hugo is ours? How dare you? How dare you fucking say that? Science fiction is for everyone, and just because someone doesn't agree with you doesn't make them wrong. One of the most upsetting things about the Sad Puppy campaign, is it didn't come sooner. Not their fault, but it should have came much sooner than that to prevent something like this from happening in the first place. One of the most upsetting things about the Sad Puppy campaign is that they're saying that the Hugo shouldn't belong to all of us. It should belong to them. No, they're saying that it should belong to everyone else, and you're the one who's angry at them for trying to encroach on your power, trying to encroach on your status quo. The Hugos don't belong to the set of all people who've read genre. They belong to the Worldcon and the people who attend and or support it. You mean support you. The set of all the people who read science fiction since start their own award. Who knows what we should call the fans who don't meet Nielsen Hastings' approval? Wrong fans, perhaps? Or the vast majority of the reading public? Strip away the spin. And what Nielsen Hayden is actually saying is that Hugo Award belongs to Tor Books and their associated in-group. The anger of the Nielsen Haydens has less to do with the principle and more to do with the fact that only 3 Tor publisher works made the final ballot this year, compared to the performance in previous years. This is a humiliating defeat. Hallelujah! 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 I know it's ironic that an atheist is saying this, but hallelujah! Hallelujah! I don't have anything directly against Tor Books, but given how she's talking, I kind of have developed the opinion that they're not as good as they claim to be. It's just like, hey, you want to be successful, you have to be through us because we control one of the most coveted awards in science fiction. Naturally, many of the clique's members are trying to claim foul play. Some argue that campaigning for nominations is inherently unfair, despite the fact that Corf's approved authors John Scalzi and Charles Stross have openly campaigned for Hugo votes and nominations in the past. In other words, it's okay when we do it, but it's wrong when you do it. Others argue that Sad Puppies' campaign is a vehicle of self-promotion for its creator, Larry Correia. Again, apologize. Allegations that he is using the slate to advance his own works have dogged him since 2013. This year, however, he put a stop to the allegations once and for all by turning down his own nomination. He always maintained that he has no interest in winning or being nominated for an award, and now he has proven it. Sorry. Perhaps the most bizarre allegation is the claim that supporters of the Sad Puppies constitute their own clique are trying to achieve dominance for conservatives and libertarian authors. The presence of liberals and progressives like Annie Ballet, Carrie English, and Rajnar Vajra, sorry, mispronouncing all of that horribly. I'm bad at this. On the nomination slate appear to have escaped critics. Correria, Hoyt, and Torkelson and others have always maintained that their goal is to end political intolerance in sci-fi, not reinforce it. It's likely that the Corfs are simply projecting their own behavior onto others, another thing that social justice warriors and feminists do. I mean, anytime a social justice warrior says, oh, you're just a misogynist, they're really saying it about themselves. I mean, take any accusation and realize they're really projecting themselves, and half of them don't even realize they are. It's like when a man or a woman accuses their lover of cheating on them. It's like, well, you're just going around and cheating on me. Most likely, they are the ones who are actually cheating and trying to get you to admit it so they can feel justified for doing it or won't feel guilty for doing it. That's what social justice warriors do. They want you to admit for being misogynist or sexist or racist so that when they do it, they can feel justified that they're doing it because you're doing it. And that's what's happening here. When you've been engaged in political intolerance for so many years, it must be hard to imagine that anyone thinks differently. As soon as news of the Hugo nominations began to spread, those closed-minded bigots, there is no other word, started angrily discussing options to deny the Sad Puppies a fair shot at prizes. Instead of actually reading and evaluating the authors, they're now discussing voting for a no award, the Hugo equivalent of spoiling your ballot paper. You know, one of the things, I wrote an article today on my blog. It was called False Consensus Bias or False Consensus Effect. And these Corfs are living it to the T. I mean, they really embrace it and don't even see it. They feel that they represent the vast majority, that more people support their kind of thinking than they realized. And probably, Sad Puppies has demonstrated that they're wrong. Sad Puppies has proven that these chorfs suffer from a false consensus bias. That there are more people out there who are sick of the cronyism, who are sick of this politics of only these people over here get nominated. Sorry, I'm stressing out my voice a little too much. Ooh, and there's my head. I can't do this for too much longer. Okay, so where was I? The Gamergate of sci-fi. Despite the outrage, the Sad Puppies campaign has been a resounding success. A new class of sci-fi fans has been introduced to the process, and the course clique has suffered a major and perpetual fatal blow to its authority. The dominance of Tor Books and its associate cliques has been broken, and publishing houses that respect political diversities, such as Bain Books and Castella House, now have a seat at the table. Vox Day, the lead editor at Castella House, commented on the nominations. I'm very pleased that science fiction readers so strongly support the Sad Puppies recommendations. It's fantastic to see John C. Wright, one of the true grandmasters of science fiction, finally receiving some long overdue recognition. It's a privilege to publish him, and we're delighted to learn that 6 Hugo nominations he has 6. Wow, that's impressive. I get so caught up in this. A professional game designer and early supporter of Gamergate, Day credited Gamers Rebellion with giving hopes to science fiction fans. The connection between Sad Puppies and Gamergate is that both groups are now striking back against left-wing control freaks who have subjugated science fiction to ideological control for too decades and are now attempting to do the same thing in the game industry. Gamergate has shown people in the science fiction, in fantasy, in comics, in journalism, as actually done it in a lot of other places, such as metal music and tabletop gaming as well. But that you don't have to hide what you truly think anymore, because social justice warriors are going to attack you and try to drive you out of a job. You can read, write, develop, and play what you want without fear of their disapproval. Well, I'm still fearful of it, but, I'm willing to face that fear. Vox Day is well-known in the sci-fi community as a right-winger, but people of all political persuasion have rallied to his call for intellectual, political, and creative freedom. That ultimately, it is what the Sad Puppies hope to achieve, a community where creatives and artistic merit count for everything and where social and political conformity count for nothing. Thank fucking God. This is what we need. This is what Gamergate needs. This is what Sad Puppies, what gaming, what sci-fi, what all writing, what all artistic forms need. That it's the merit, the artistic merit and the creativity that determine how good something is and not what political ideology you have. I made the joke today that, if feminists had their way, they would segregate books in a bookstore. This side is supported by feminism and this side is not. Although someone would say that if feminists had their way, no book that feminists didn't support would ever get published. Although I kind of later thought that the section that was non-feminist supported was actually a trash can, and all of the books were in a dumpster. And I know that there are some good feminists out there, and I'm friends with some, I respect many, but there are a lot of feminists within the course. There are a lot of within the anti-Gamergate movement, and this is what we're fighting against. They don't want to lose the power they have. So, where was I? Sci-fi fans, gamers, comic book readers, students, academics, liberals, libertarians, conservatives. It seems that fandoms and online communities everywhere are waking up to the new menace of political intolerance, authoritarianism, I think I actually said that right this time, ostracism, and so-called social justice. This is particularly apparent online, where the tactics of shaming and social exclusion take place in full public view rather than in the backroom whispering campaigns, and where the oppressed have access to precisely the same tools the oppressors do. The Sad Puppies have struck a blow for creative and intellectual freedom, but their campaign is just one part of a wider movement against forces of authoritarian left whose allies are decreasing by the day. Whether they are called chorfs, social justice warriors, or step forward students, that's kind of clever, authoritarians, finger waggers, bullies, and public mongers are facing a backlash across dozens of fronts at the defiant spirit of Gamergate floods into other fandoms. Anyone who is watching or sees this in the future and you support Gamergate, this is what Gamergate is doing. This is why it's so important. And this is why I decided to come out to Gamergate, because I wanted to be a part of the solution and not perpetrate the problem. And I want to be a successful writer. And for the longest time, I tried to stay out of Gamergate. I tried to stay out of the men's rights movement. I tried so hard because I wanted to be a successful writer. And I knew that if I revealed what my politics were, that I could be blacklisted, that no one would support me. I've even been blocked by one person so far who is a feminist, an anti-Gamergater, who is a part of the writing world, and criticized me because I didn't rush to her aid when she said that people within Gamergate have been abusive to her. Now, the only reason I really didn't say anything to her about it is because it was the day that I was doing the Hope for Cytherea campaign to try to get voices together to help her. And she's like, well, you don't care about victims at all. Oh, so funny if you actually knew the reason why I didn't rush to your aid. And had I done it, had I rushed to her aid, I would have said, okay, I want you to give me names of all the people who spoke negatively to you that you think is from Gamergate. And I'm going to go in, check these people out. I'm going to ask around Gamergate to find out who these people are, try to get their side of the story. And if these are people that we need to police, then so be it. Because that's what Gamergate does. We police our own. If someone is doing something they're not supposed to, we make sure that they are either ostracized or punished. Feminism, anti-Gamergate, CORFs, social justice warriors, they don't do that. If someone is doing what they're not supposed to be doing, they'll turn a blind eye to it. Ordinary people are utterly fed up with the dominance of cliquish culture warriors whose bizarre opinions do not reflect those of the majority. A perfect definition for false consensus bias. They're fed up with being told what to do, what to believe, and whom to exclude. And whenever or whoever they may be, crusaders for political and social conformity are in the midst of a storm, and that storm is only just beginning. Oh, yeah, it is. So, let's take a look at a few other things real quick. So, as you'll note that this is a archive, Hugo Award nominations fall victim to misogynistic, racist voting campaign. This was an article on Entertainment Weekly that I believe came out a few days ago. And this article has been recently corrected on Entertainment Weekly by the same author. And we'll go over that in just a moment. I'm going to read you the only real difference between the two articles. The Hugo Awards have fallen victim to a campaign in which misogynistic groups lobby to nominate only white males for the Science Fiction Book Awards. These groups, Sad Puppies and Rabid Puppies, which both are affiliated with last year's Gamergate scandal, urge sci-fi fans to become members of the Hugo Awards voting body, World Science Fiction Convention, in order to cast votes against female writers and writers of colors. Membership only costs $40 and allow members to vote for the 2016 nomination as well as 2015. Their correction, and let me zoom this in. Which was released yesterday after misinterpreting reports in other news publications, meaning they didn't actually do any research. EW published an unfair and inaccurate depiction of the Sad Puppies voting slate, which does in fact include many women and writers of colors. As Sad Puppies Brad Torgerson explained to EW, the slate includes both women and non-Caucasian writers, including all of those people listed there. I'd read them, but I'm going to butcher up some of those names, and I don't want to do that. The story has been updated to more accurately reflect the EW's regret the error. Now, the thing to take out from this is that the original article stated that they were against women and minorities and only voted for white authors. See, the thing is that the Hugo Awards was basically, only voting people that were of a certain sexuality that was representative of the LGBT, only voting whether the author or the characters were of a minority race or were women. So it's either that the author or the characters within a story represented these things. It's like Torgerson right here says, Likewise, we've seen the Hugo voting skewed ideological as Worldcon and fandom alike have tended to use the Hugos as an affirmative action award, giving Hugos because a writer or artist, insert underrepresented minority or victim group, or because the work given features characters. And that's the thing. People won because, you know, oh, it's a black author, they should get a Hugo. Oh, this has a lesbian character in it, it should get a Hugo. I mean, if, in all honesty, this sounds more racist that a person is judged for what they are than for what their story isn't about. And you know what? This might be a little bit controversial of me, but Martin Luther King, there's something he said in his speech that I want everyone to remember. Hopefully this actually plays. Oh, wait, let me back up a bit. Kind of missed it. Here we go. One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King said that. And here we have a cronyism, the tourists choosing someone because of the color of their skin. Not by the content of their character, not by the content of their story, but by the color of their skin, but by their gender, by their sexuality. It doesn't matter anything else. It doesn't matter if they wrote a good story or not. If you happen to be a black lesbian, you get a chance to have a Hugo. It doesn't matter what you wrote. All it matters is that you are a minority. You are a black lesbian feminist. You're a social justice warrior. You support, you know, the cliquish nature. And I'm sorry, but anyone of any other race, gender, or sexuality should be insulted by this. You should be flat out insulted that anyone gets selected, not by the work itself, but because of something that they couldn't control, something that they were born as. And that gets more respect in the sci-fi world than anything you write. Let me take another example here, and this was played for laughs, but
Dr. Kelso wants me to be a role model for the community because I'm a great doctor, and that's great, and I will sign on the dotted line. That's not what this is about. All my life, I've been singled out because I'm black.
I didn't even hear the content.
I don't know if you can hear this or not, but you could probably go to the channel. But basically, Tark here is being given first place for the science fair, even though he didn't enter into the contest, and he's getting, just so they can say, well, we're not racist.
For the picture.
We're all about equality.
Remember our college brochures?
So what? They put you on the cover
Twice?
He's in the college brochure twice, once here and once here, just so they say they have racial diversity. And that's what the Hugo Award sounds like to me, that they brought, you know, and one of the rumors that I heard from all of this is that they would pressure people into voting a certain way, or else they would be deemed racist. Well, you need to vote for this person. Well, I think this other story by this white author is good. Oh, but if you vote for that white author, you're actually racist. Oh, okay, then I'll vote for the black author, even though their story is not as good. Good. Well, you're not racist. This is the bullshit that's going on. This is what the Sad Puppies and the Rabid Puppies are all about. And this author here, Isabella, just jumped the gun. She didn't do her research on anything. And authors like her are stating that, people of the Sad Puppies, especially the people who organized it, are racist and sexist. Brad Torgerson, what's your response to being a sexist and a racist? Let's see here. Let's go to his website. Oh my God, he has a black wife. Apparently he loves women and he's not racist. Oh my God, my mind is blown. And in fact, many of the people within the Sad Puppies are women and minorities. Oh my God, you mean people of minority and women don't need other people speaking for them? It's almost like not your shield. So I found this article by Vox, and he's listing the article that I'm about to name, but I want to read a couple things from it, and I'm almost done here. So so this was actually Brad Torgerson's article on the next page that I showed you. There's a few things he lists here, and then I'm going to read a few things that I've taken out. What disturbs me the most or more is that the field of science fiction and fantasy is stooping this low. That some of my colleagues, and no, contrary to the impressions of the field 20 years ago, not everyone likes or gets along with each other, have decided to make the nerd argument over the Hugos into a decidedly personal grudge match, where the object is not to just win the argument, but to destroy the arguer. Professionally, in the marketplace, on the big stage of public opinion, this is the kind of stuff you ordinarily find in a cutthroat national political election. But then it's been clear for years that cutthroat politics have drifted down into the nerd circles of all kinds, comic book circles, movies, television, video games, etc. There's simply no escaping it. And there are people for whom the whining is more important than ethics, more important than integrity, and more important than the truth. It was John McIntosh who was saying that a documentary shouldn't be about the something strange. And he was quoting someone else, but it kind of explained a lot. But it was something like, there are other ways to get to the truth than using facts. And it's like, what the fuck? You think that you can arrive at the truth without using facts? Are you a fucking moron? And this is what the chores are doing. This is what the social justice warriors do. This is what feminists do. The third wave feminist movement. This is the bullshit that they use. That winning is more important than ethics, more important than integrity, and more important than the truth. They don't care about helping anyone. They only care about winning. And the truth is, I'm not a dastardly guy as the Entertainment Weekly piece makes me out to be, and neither is Larry. And I'm concerned with the infestation of political correctness that has invaded sci-fi and fantasy over 15 years. Oh, am I concerned? He's asking. You bet. Today's ride on the media drunken machine was just another iteration of the near endless attempts by the political correct to enforce their views with slander and falsehood when it comes down to it. Our field is disease. It has been struck by the same mental virus that has been permeating other sectors of our culture, as our astute have been recovered victims put it. The new zealots are a cult who dwell in depressed and anger, seeking the slightest excuse to lash out and make other people suffer. Today, the Crusader mentality decided to defame and slander Brad R. Torgerson, the evil, demonic, racist, and hateful, sick, bigoted misogynist. As my friend Larry often quips, it's half the bastard. If I was half the bastard some of the Crusaders say I am, I'd probably hate me too. But really, when sci-fi fantasy sinks to this depths, you know we've jumped a certain kind of unfortunate shark. Political correctness has gone to a place of destructive, take no prisoners, soul tyranny that could very well and permanently wreck this field unless good men and women of conscience decide to stand up. Well, you better believe I'm motherfucking standing up. I'm not going to put up with this shit. This is why I came out to Gamergate, because I'm sick of this influence that social justice warriors has on the writing community, and I want to speak up against it. Sorry, let me go back to what he was saying. I made the decision a long time ago that I wasn't going to be one of those professionals who I cannot speak. Diplomatically skulks around the field, obsequiously, I can't read, trying to avoid controversy and not upset the bigger fish. I know how he feels. That is how I felt for the longest time when I first became a writer. I didn't want to be a part of the political system. I didn't want to be a part of Gamergate. Well, there's other reasons I didn't want to be a part of Gamergate, but that was one of the reasons why. I didn't want to be a part of the men's rights movement. Because if I did, I'd run risk of ruining my career before it ever even really started. And the reason I came out against it is because I kept seeing the abuse that these groups had. And I just couldn't sit idly by any longer. I had to do something about it. And that's why I put a risk to everything that I want, all of my dreams. Because I'm going to be part of the solution and not be an excuse for the problem. But let me go back to what he's saying. Again, I've seen too much of the elephant. My career isn't so important to me that I am willing to become an ideological chameleon or cipher. Perhaps that has angered some people to the point that they believe it's a time to end Torgerson once and for all. If so, I think that's a very sad statement about the vindictiveness that has taken over the genre among men and women who should probably be working hard to be friends. Folks, until or unless political correctness is given the boot, this kind of stuff isn't going to stop. It won't just be me getting the torch. It will be you too. You other authors, you other fans. Political correctness has a bottomless stomach and is red in tooth and claw. Even if you try to appease the beast, it will eat you eventually anyway. And that is very true. So let me go ahead and click on his link here. Those were excerpts taken from this article. It's a pretty long article. A lot of it is ranting. I recommend reading it, but let me, I'm going to leave this picture up here, and I'm going to pull out a few notes that I wanted to take from this. Okay, so he's talking about the journalist, because a blog journalist named Isabella, not saying her last name, working beneath the banner of Entertainment Weekly, penned a short, error-laden article titled "The Hugo Awards Nomination Fall Victim Misogynistic Racist Voting." The mistakes in that article could have been easily avoided if Isabella had done some research into the issues she was reporting on. Near as I can tell, Isabella was spoon-fed some links and a very rushed and sloppy narrative about Sad Puppies 3 being racist and woman-hating. And she posted all of this without stopping to consider whether or not she was disseminating into a wider world was true or accurate. And it was all about being right. It was all about winning. It wasn't about truth. It wasn't about integrity. It wasn't about ethics. And you see it firsthand with the Entertainment Weekly. They're not speaking out of their ass. You see proof that this is happening. The error-laden article quickly went viral, especially among opponents of Sad Puppies 3. Twitter, which he generally avoids and ignores, lit up like a Christmas tree, and quickly I had friends and other authors contacting me saying, Entertainment Weekly has run a hatchet piece on you. Better jump on it. So I read the piece. I noted the errors. I also noted that the piece made explicitly inductive links between Sad Puppies 3 and last year's great nerd controversy, Gamergate. The reasons for this were pretty obvious. Words like racist and misogynist are presently code for not part of the human equation. Thus, any man or woman who can be successfully labeled these things is cut off from polite circles, perhaps even driven out of the workplace or worse. Milo Yiannopoulos, anyone? These words tend to be used as a general purpose ideological grenades when the thrower of said grenades lacks sufficient real evidence of wrongdoing, but wants to see the target squirm and suffer anyways. Now, I'm a patient man, and, I'm jumping between the articles here, so I've got a long fuse, but this tactic employed today, it's on another level. This isn't just nerds bickering anymore. Baseless, false allegations of this type can ruin careers as well as lives. What I was fearful of when I came out, this right here. We've seen this before. The internet has allowed yellow journalism and rumor mongering to run riot. And I have to be honest. No lie told in the service of supposedly higher cause ever does justice to the higher cause. I love that line. No lie told in the service of supposedly higher cause ever does justice to the higher cause. No matter how widely spread the narrative, if the basis of the narrative is false, then the narrative itself is fatally undermined, and thus the argument that form the building blocks of the narratives are themselves undermined. And I already read that paragraph from the last time. I think people that perhaps what some people unused to the insider baseball of science fiction fantasy might not be clear about is that Sad Puppies 3 is not a thing invented to keep anyone off the Hugo ballot for demographic reasons. It was invented originally to poke fun at some try to predictables in the selection process, as well as scuttle the notion that the award was actually about quality, when it was more or less about popularity of a quasi-politicalized contest the whole time. Along the way, we fairly skewed the concept of literary affirmative action, that works and authors should be judged on the basis of the author or character demographics and box checking, and not the audience enjoyment of the prose. So that perhaps that's where opponents of SP3 thought they found a toehold. And they used it as the best they could to rope in a lot of outside media in a clownish attempt to punish and discredit both Larry and myself. But really, when science... and I already read that part as well. So, what we're seeing here is just another building block of Gamergate. What started last year as... oh, my mind is starting to go. I really have to stop soon. Stupid disability. What we saw started as corrupt journalism has seen a much bigger picture. It's not just that there's corruption within journalism. We've always known that. It's that there is a bigger force out there trying to control all forms of art, comic books, music, video games, and now writing. Well, apparently the Honey Badgers is doing a show right now. You should go check that out if you're watching this. But this, and what we're seeing today is a victory for Gamergate. The reports that we're seeing, and yeah, some of Gamergate joined in on this and helped with this. This isn't about, you know, the what a person is. It doesn't matter if you are a certain race. It doesn't matter if you're a certain gender. It doesn't matter if you're a certain sexuality. It doesn't matter if you support these things. What matters is how good your story is. Now, this does come into a little bit of controversy for me, because one of the things that I talk about when it comes to platforming, which I hope to do at Comic-Con this year, certainly doing this videos might hurt that chances, but I want to talk about this in Comic-Con, Phoenix Comic-Con, that when it comes to platforming, you've got to sell yourself as an author as much as selling your book. You know, you've got to put yourself out there so people can relate to you and attach to you. But right now, in doing so, you have to attach yourself to this cronyism, to this chorfs, that you have to be one of them in order to be like, get their table scraps. And I refuse to do that. What you see is what you get. Me. I'm an egalitarian. I believe that men are treated unfairly in our society. I believe that some women are treated unfairly in our society as well. I believe that, you know, there are issues with gays, lesbians, asexuals, bisexuals that need to be addressed within our political and legal system. I think carte blanche, we should have gay marriage just be, you know, a federally protected thing, that no matter what the state is, they can get married. That's my personal opinion. And I'm sure some of you will disagree with me. Good. I mean, the best quote that I can think of is that if you're dumb, you surround yourself with smart people. And if you're already smart, surround yourself with smart people who disagree with you. Kudos points to anyone who can tell me the source of that quote. And it's a very true statement. Yeah, sure, I like people who agree with me, but I also like people who disagree with me. And you know what? I will, you know, still support anyone who gives good advice out there, whether or not I agree with their politics. Because it's the content of what they write that's more important. While you should put yourself out there and you need to sell yourself as an author and to make friends and to make fans and to build a network and all of that, it still comes down to how good is your story. Because there are some people out there who will manipulate the system, who will get a book like 50 Shades of Grey to get a movie deal. That book is fucking horrible. I'm not even talking about the bad BDSM elements, and I'm talking about how it's actually written. It is fucking horrible. Or the Hugo Award, that you have to be a part of the clique that inserted itself into the system and is now being fought the same way the clique inserted itself. By and we need to stand up. We need to rise up against this. And I come at a personal risk here. I'm trying to get a series out there. I'm trying to make a career. And I'm still putting my foot down and saying, I'm not going to accept this anymore. This could affect my writing career. You know, I want to give presentations about being an indie writer, about platforming, about world building, about map making at Comic-Con. And I can have I could be blacklisted for the shit that I'm doing. You know, someone at Comic-Con might be anti-Sad Puppies and decide, oh, he supports the Sad Puppies. We're not going to let him do a presentation at Comic-Con, and there's nothing I can do about that. That's the risk that I face in all of this. But I'm not going to sit by anymore. I'm not going to let these groups have run at everything. No more. And this is going to sound cheesy, but I don't fucking care. You know, they invade music and we fall back. They invade comic books and we fall back. They invaded books, video games, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This time, no farther. Yes, I feel silly for saying that, but I believe in it. I believe those words. This is the starting point of something new. Gamergate, be proud. This is what your work has done. Not just for game journalism, not against anti-Gamergates, but for the music world, the comic book world. We're raising awareness. We're raising awareness of the bullshit that's happening, and we've given a platform for people like Sad Puppies to be able to get into the Hugo Award and say, we're going to use your own tactic against you, and we're going to make it honest again. And the people of the Hugo Award, the cliquish nature, don't like that because they're losing their power. No one wants to lose their power. So at this point, I'm just kind of ranting. I'm pretty much going to stop here. And I seem to have gone down to one viewer. Oh, well. So I thank you for watching. Sorry I kind of went on a rant, but this was a very personal issue to me. Shilling once again for my crowdfunding campaign. I mean, if I could work, I would, honestly. But anyways, this is Mad Cat signing off.